What's up, everybody, and welcome to Triple Threat on a Tuesday. We keep doing these Tuesday editions of Triple Threat, but that's because we have a lot going on behind the scenes, but it's all going to be worth it, I promise. But as you can tell, I am not coming from my house, mi casa, the Cribski. I am coming to you live from Los Angeles. I had a very whirlwind night the other night, but we'll dive into that another time on Triple Threat. Maybe when we're in studio and we can get some pictures going, and I haven't gotten any of those. And look, I'm still recovering. This West Coast time difference is not for your girl. Get me back to the East Coast ASAP. But if I'm complaining about jet lag and being all over the world, and not even all over the world, I'm in California. Wemby is actually on the other side of the world because he went viral for his last Airbender look. I want you guys to take a look at this, excuse me, because Wemby is doing some side quests in the most incredible way. He actually shaved his head because he visited the Shaolin Temple and was hanging out with the monks. The 7-footer visited, he obviously, as we know, he missed 2 months of the regular season due to blood clots, and he's been working his way back from that. But he embraced this new experience and shaved his head and spent some time with the monks in that temple and was really just diving into everything that goes on behind those sacred walls. And I have to say, Wemby is my favorite basketball player currently. And it's not even because of what he does on the court. I think if you were a basketball fan, you have to enjoy what he does on the court. But I think for me, the biggest thing is Wemby is such a unicorn. And it's just right that that is his name. I mean, what basketball player do you know goes to a temple, shaves his head, and eats lunch, breakfast, dinner with the monks? He is so in tune with just his inner beings. The same guy who was reading before the All-Star game. This is the same guy who said, "Don't text me after 9 p.m. because I'm already in bed reading my book." I absolutely love that Wemby is who he is unapologetically. And I love that Wemby is such a old soul in such a young body. It's very Tim Duncan. It's very on brand, honestly, for the San Antonio Spurs. I don't know what's in the water in San Antonio. I don't know how they get these players who are just so basketball first and everything else later and just want to be at peace and just want to be namaste. But I will say this. If the monks gave Wemby any blessings, any ideologies, any things to just kind of percolate his mind in the offseason, the league is in trouble because those monks are one with the world, one with the universe. So NBA, watch out. Wemby is coming back with a vengeance. And speaking of coming back with a vengeance, so will we. Because when we get back, we got Brad Botkin and Chris Walker. And you know it is always a time when the three of us get together. So don't move. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Triple Threat and the dangerous trios in the building. It is me, Ashley Nicole Moss, Chris Walker, Brad Botkin, and you know when the three of us get together and start talking about basketball, it is nothing short of chaotic in the best possible way, I feel like, though. So let's dive into it because Jason Kidd is a name that has been circulating for the past few days, and it's not because the Mavericks are just weeks away from landing the Cooper flag in the draft, but it's because ever since the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau, Jason Kidd's name has been circulating as a possible replacement. And the interesting part about this is Jason Kidd very much is still employed by the Dallas Mavericks. And kicker here, this is in a very important note, although there have been various reports that say, quote, there is mutual interest between Jason Kidd and the Knicks have yet to request permission to actually interview the Dallas Mavericks head coach, who also signed an extension last year. So just to break this down, obviously we know the New York Knicks are going to be back in contention in the Eastern Conference. It's going to look somewhat the same, I feel like, as it did this year, right? You're going to have the Cavs in a position in the top three. The Boston Celtics are going to be interesting, right? Because Jayson Tatum's going to miss some time, but that's still a very good basketball team. You expect them to be in contention. The Knicks are in the mix. You're probably going to have to put the Pacers in the mix. But the East, as we know, is drastically different than the Western Conference when you talk about top contenders. But what makes me laugh here, Chris, I'm going to start with you because you're very on hand in the college space. We're acting like the Dallas Mavericks didn't just land, which blew everybody's mind, the number one draft pick, who is 99.9% going to be Cooper Flagg. This is not a knock to my Knicks. Why would Jason Kidd even want that job?
Listen, think about this. It is the New York Knicks, right? You think about the epicenter of basketball right now, giving it being, MSG, New York City being the most popular city in America, in my opinion. Why wouldn't you want to be the coach of the New York Knicks and have a chance to bring them back to glory? All right. I mean, again, Jason Kidd doesn't need the money. He's a Hall of Fame. He's a well-accomplished player. And to your point about Cooper Flagg, and I think Cooper Flagg is an exceptional player. But the question is, and Brad may disagree, and you'll probably chop my head off, Ashley, but is he a generational player? Is it for certain?
Oh, come on.
Is it for certain that you're getting the next LeBron, the next Kobe? Is that for certain that you're getting the next Giannis? I'm not saying he's not a great player, but he's a great player in a diminished game, which is college basketball, where the stars are not the stars there anymore, and a freshman can come in and dominate. I'm not saying he's not outside the realm of being great, or will he be a great player? I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is, if I'm Jason Kidd sitting there going like, okay, Kyrie's hurt, Anthony Edwards, oh I can't forget Anthony's last name. Anthony Davis, I'm sorry. He's always hurt. So now you look at that roster, you got rid of Luka, you got a chance to be a competitor right away from day one going to the Knicks, depending on, some of the moves they make. So I can see why Jason Kidd is interested. Now, and again, Brad's a little more inside than I am. Like, a lot of this is fodder. A lot of this is trying to gauge the interest of Jason Kidd. Can they make a trade? They're litigating everything in the press. But if I'm Jason Kidd, I'm definitely looking at it, for sure.
Yeah, we got to rank the narcissistic factor here. It's the Knicks, and it's, Jason Kidd has not been above, wanting to be in the limelight, that you can't get any more in the limelight than the New York Knicks. And to Chris's point, there's a window here where you can be a hero in New York. If we're going to talk about potentially Kevin Durant getting traded there, if Jason Kidd were to relocate, if you do something in New York, if you even get to the finals, or if you win a final, certainly, you're going to be a hero in a way that doesn't exist in a place like Dallas, or frankly, probably anywhere else, given the drought that they've had from a championship standpoint, and just the glitz of that franchise and the faithfulness of the New York fans. I mean, there really is an opportunity if you're kind of an eye guy, which personally and people I've talked to around the league, Jason Kidd is one of those guys. He's not a coach that wants to be in the background. There were some rumblings that he didn't like the way Luka Doncic played, because no coach was ever going to get really any credit on a Luka Doncic team, because all you do is hand the ball to Luka Doncic and let him dribble the air out of it, and he sort of does everything. I think there's a lot of factors in play here. And let's not forget that Jason Kidd has orchestrated a move like this in the past. He was working back channels to get out of Brooklyn and find his way to Milwaukee when he wanted to go coach Giannis. And so this is a guy that has had his hand on the maneuverings that happen in the back rooms of NBA offices. And I would be very surprised if he doesn't have some say in this. And the word around is, if Jason Kidd wants to go, the Knicks might not even conduct interviews. Like, he's just their guy. And so we're talking about, why would Jason Kidd want to go? My question is, why are the Knicks so fascinated with him?
Well, that's a good point as well. But before I get there, I kind of want to Like, look, yeah, I understand New York. It's the Mecca. It's the market. It's the bright lights. We all know what Tom Thibodeau for a very long time was being held on a pedestal when the Knicks were constantly in the playoffs. And even though they weren't winning, it was a long way from what we saw the Knicks of the past do, right? And I think that that's why some people were also rubbed the wrong way when he was ultimately fired, because it was the first Eastern Conference Finals in a quarter of a century, right? But I will say this, when we go back to Jason Kidd, here's my thing. Yes, it may not be as big of a market as New York, but we're also talking about a market, a franchise that just got rid of Luka and is very much unhappy with the organization and has very much lost faith in the organization by the basketball gods or the rigged gods, whatever you want to refer to them as. They get the number one pick in Cooper Flag, and you really have an opportunity to bring that excitement back to Dallas with a player who is of such a high caliber and is a player that so many people wanted to get their hands on. I feel like even if Jason Kidd doesn't go to New York, that does a lot for his ego. You take a team that lost Luka and you potentially bring them back to the playoffs with Cooper Flag, and you make Dallas fans excited about the Mavericks again, Chris. I mean, that's not something to just kind of like push to the side either.
Ashley, you're a Cowboy fan. What are you talking about? That's only one thing that matters in Dallas, and that's the Cowboys. You know that. Cooper Flag coming there is great.
No, come on. Luka was bringing in numbers. I've been to Mavs games.
Okay, I got you. But you're talking about a guy who was all NBA 5 straight years. That's Cooper Flag is going to be a rookie. We got to push back.
Luka started somewhere too.
I get it, but what I'm saying is I'm Jason Kidd. When you're saying you're bringing in Cooper Flag, it's almost like, okay, we're pushing a restart button. We got an injured Kyrie. We got Anthony Davis, who's always hurt. Yeah, we're bringing back some core guys. Klay Thompson, who's old. And then you're bringing in Cooper Flag, who's going to be a great player. How about this? Let's juxtapose that with the Spurs. Is Cooper Flag a bigger generation potential player than Wemby? And look what they're going through in San Antonio. So what I'm saying is, I'm Jason Kidd. I'm going
and they
to
might
New
get
York
Giannis.
on
So
the first game smoking. I'm headed to New York, and y'all might get KD. I'm out of here. Let me get to New York.
First of all, let me speak for all Knicks fans. I want to speak for about 98% of Knicks fans. We don't want Kevin Durant. Like, I don't understand where this is coming from. I don't understand why everybody thinks Knicks fans want KD. I don't even think KD wants to be in New York. He's made that very clear. The enamor kind of went south when he chose Brooklyn over New York and said the Knicks weren't cool. I don't think Knicks fans forgot that. I'm very in touch with Knicks Twitter, and most of the fan base does not want Kevin Durant. But Brad, I want to ask you about something you did say, and that was, why would the Knicks want Jason Kidd? Elaborate on that.
I just don't understand. I really, there's a fascination that seems to be, I think, thankfully dying out in the NBA, where the bigger the name, the bigger the career as these players move into jobs or broadcasters move into jobs. We're seeing a bit of a swing now with some of these assistant coaches getting hired, more basketball people that don't have the name and the career to go behind their resume. I just don't understand. I know he took the Mavericks to the finals. He's been sort of a controversial coach. He does not seem to me. I always go back to, there's a few coaches in the league that I think actually really do, with the same roster, are really going to get substantially more out of the same players. And Jason Kidd's not one of them. I'm looking at an Eric Spoelstra. I'm looking at an Ime Udoka. Steve Kerr did it in Golden State when he took over from Mark Jackson with the same roster and got 16 more wins and a championship out of them. There are very, very few. Most of the time, you get coaches like Quinn Snyder was held in high regard when he was in Utah. He becomes available. We're going to get Quinn Snyder. Everything in Atlanta is going to turn around. No, it's not. Even a coach as good as that, you can't change the roster. And so in terms of, if there's like 3 or 4 coaches out there that without a significant change to the roster actually swing the needle of your fortunes, I don't understand how Jason Kidd is one of them. I really don't. And ultimately, he's still, you pointed it out, Ashley, he's under contract with Dallas. The way that this would work is like, he's already been traded once. How weird is it when coaches get traded? Jason Kidd is one of them who orchestrated that. He got traded from Brooklyn to Milwaukee. They would have to actually give up assets to go get Jason Kidd. I really don't understand that. Ashley, I know you're in touch with Knicks Twitter and nobody wants Durant. If this comes down to like, who's going to make us better next year, Kevin Durant or Jason Kidd?
Oh, for sure. Then KD wins. Absolutely.
No question. Go get Kevin Durant. I just don't understand.
I don't know what Jason Kidd did to Brad. Jason Kidd, I don't know what he did to you, Brad. Oh, my goodness.
He's just a coach.
But
he didn't do anything.
This.
He's just a coach.
Got you. But think about this. He's still an accomplished coach. Who would think Frank Vogel would win a championship or Mike Budenholzer would win a championship?
Exactly.
Or Mark Daigneault. So you're saying like, okay, these guys are better coaches than Jason Kidd. Only one guy can win a championship. To me, this is about Tom Thibodeau more than it is about Jason Kidd. Brad, you know this. These guys are behind the scenes, CAA, World Wide West, Leon Rose. It's more to do about the comfortability. It's also the profile of the coach. That's why Jay Wright is, someone who can be intriguing, even though he won't get it or he didn't want it. But Jason Kidd is the profile. Tom Thibodeau is not the profile of what they want the winning coach to be in New York. And it's must-see TV. That's what I believe. Because they were smart. Think about this. Phil Jackson. He never coached a team that didn't have great players, right? And that's the truth. He made sure that he was aligned with stars. And I don't know, again, is blasphemous to say that Popovich is not a great coach. But until he had the stars, was he a great coach? I don't know. So all I'm saying is Jason did coach Giannis, right? He did coach a Brooklyn team. He coached a star in Luka who made it to the finals. So you're saying if he got a little more juice in New York, and whether KD is there or not, you look at the East, the Cavs, I don't know, are they pretenders? You look at the Pacers, they can certainly beat the Pacers. Boston won't be what Boston is last year. Maybe Jay Kidd is what they need to get him over the hump, because it's fair to say that the New York will be the favorite next year, right or wrong?
Well, look, it would be interesting to have a former New Jersey Net coaching the New York Knicks. But you mentioned the Boston Celtics, and when we come back after this break, we're going to talk about the Boston Celtics, but not in the way that you think. Once again, Jayson Tatum is public enemy number one, and I just don't get it. We'll discuss after this. Welcome back to Triple Threat, everyone. Ashley, Brad, and Chris. And before the break, I teased that we were going to be talking about the Boston Celtics, but not quite in the way that you think. Once again, Jayson Tatum has a target on his back, his front, wherever you want to put the target. He has it, and I'm not quite sure why. Look, as we know, the Boston Celtics season came to a devastating end when Jayson Tatum went down with an Achilles injury in Game 4 against the New York Knicks. And recently, Tatum let the basketball world know just how he was doing, because it was very difficult to see a player who's always available go down like that. And he said day 25, days are starting to get a little easier, which we absolutely love to hear. We do know, from other athletes who've been very outspoken about Achilles or ACL injuries. It's extremely difficult to come back from. And it's not so much waiting for your body to heal. It's more of the mental that goes into it. So first and foremost, I think we can all agree that we're happy that Jayson Tatum is in a brighter space mentally and is kind of taking the days as they come and is prepared for his rehabilitation. But it's Shaquille O'Neal and a recent clip that has gone viral on social media that we are going to be talking about, because he said that Jayson Tatum does not currently have a Hall of Fame resume. Now, we could not clear the clip, my producer Stryker tells me, because there's a lot of cussing in it and we are a network. So I'm going to paraphrase while you take a look at Jayson Tatum's resume thus far. Remember, he's only 27 years old. So here's his resume. As we know, 2024 NBA champion, 6-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA first team, 2022 Eastern Conference MVP, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and a 2-time gold medalist. But Shaq said that he currently is not in there's 2 Hall of Fames. There is the regular basketball Hall of Fame, and then there's the bad MFer Hall of Fame. And he kind of quoted Isaiah Thomas, who once said that there were too many guys in the NBA getting into the Hall of Fame. And when his co-host Adam Lefkoe asked him, who's in the bad MFer Hall of Fame. Then he named guys like Giannis, Jokic. He named guys like Steph Curry, LeBron. So it then posed the question, is Shaq being difficult just to be difficult? Let's be honest. Let's be very clear here. There is one basketball Hall of Fame. There isn't two separate ones. Don't care what the guys want. Don't care what they're advocating for. There's one Hall of Fame. And when we talk about the one Hall of Fame, Jayson Tatum's career thus far, again, there's a lot more for him to do in this league, is very much a Hall of Fame resume. What are we even having this conversation about, Brad?
I agree with Shaq.
What?
I think that, if you're going to be in the Hall of Fame after, let's call it 7 good years, I'm not quite sure how long has Jayson Tatum been in the league? 7, 8 years? If you're going to be if he stopped right now and you're in the Hall of Fame after that short of time, you have to have been an MVP, best player in the league type guy. Jokic is on probably a 7-year run. Giannis is probably on a 7-year, at his height run. A player like that. Jayson Tatum's not in that category. If you start letting in everybody that starts off their career good, that has some All-NBAs and has some All-Star appearances, is clearly a great player, it's not to that point. Your Hall of Fame is very, very watered. It's just not a long enough time unless you have spent 6 or 7 years at a Steph Curry level, at a Shaq level, at a Giannis level, at a Jokic level. And Jayson Tatum's not that. I don't think there's very many people that would even say he's a top 5 player in the league right now. So I don't disagree with Shaq. I actually think Shaq is pretty too simplistic about a lot of his analysis. But in this case, I think he's onto something with this bad MFer thing. If your duration is as short as Tatum's is right now, you got to be a bad MFer. And there's levels to that. If Tatum keeps doing this for 5 more years, he's clearly on track. But no, if it ended right now, he hasn't been good enough for long enough.
What are we even talking about here? Outside of that resume, Jayson Tatum holds several records for the Boston Celtics, the championship DNA Boston Celtics. He has surpassed several of those records. We are talking about the team that once had one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Larry Bird, on it, and he has the most points in Celtics, or this is career in playoffs, excuse me. This is not even what he did with the Boston Celtics as an organization on his own. We're talking about top 5 in multiple categories when it comes to the playoffs. He is tied with Larry Bird, the most famous Boston Celtic of all time, when it comes to most career games with 40 plus points. What are we even talking about here, Brad?
I'm telling you what, no, we're not. Listen, this is not a conversation. You can make a reasonable argument that he would be a Hall of Famer right now. You got to put this into context. Jayson Tatum is not Larry Bird. The reason he has as many high-scoring games, 40-point games in the playoffs, is because of the three-point era. Larry Bird wasn't shooting threes. A lot more, the pace is up. A lot more points are scored. Jayson Tatum's not that level of a player.
What about the other statistics that are on there?
About that.
Hold on. Let me get Chris in this conversation, because Chris, there was something interesting in that soundbite that Shaq kind of stepped back from, was like, I'm not going to touch it. And I believe that was Brandon Jennings in the clip, who also is Jayson Tatum's public enemy number 1 for him for some reason. I don't know why he's got a beef with Jayson Tatum, but that's a different conversation. When asked about Chris Paul, he said, I'm not a guard, I can't answer that. And then Brandon Jennings said, no, he's just in the regular Hall of Fame. So Chris Paul is somebody who's never won anything in his career. From your standpoint, is Chris Paul currently a Hall of Famer? And if he is, and people can make the argument for Chris Paul, then why is not Jayson Tatum?
Chris Paul's definitely in the Hall of Fame. Top 5 in assists all time, been in the NBA. His longevity speaks for itself. He's just a well-loved player, and he's played for a lot of different teams. And you're right, he hasn't won it, but Charles Barkley didn't win it either. I'll juxtapose that with, say, like Mitch Richmond's in the Hall of Fame. Right? Think about that. Mitch Richmond's in the Hall of Fame. And I don't think that what he did even compares to what Jayson Tatum is doing. Sometimes when guys like Shaq talk, and I remember when Magic was a coach in the NBA, and I remember I even coach, I don't even want to say the coach's name, when I was a college coach and I was recruiting one time, and he was like, he doesn't do it like Larry Bird used to do it, or he doesn't do it the way Will Chamberlain. I said, man, what are you talking about? And sometimes I think these guys get caught up If he's not in a Hall of Famer right now in today's league and climate, then who is? Sure, we can mention
Right.
Giannis. We can mention Jokic, but those are the outliers. Other than, is Shea Gilgeous, could he be a Hall of Famer? Look what he's done in the first couple years that he's been in the playoffs that surpassed what even AI and Michael Jordan did. I'm saying this when we start talking stats and stuff, the guy's a champion. They could have won it back to back if they didn't bounce it against Miami. And again, as I said before, I don't understand this Tatum hate. You're talking about guys first all NBA type guy for 3 or 4 years in a row. Like, what does he? And I would say this to Brad. Okay, Brad, he's not another one. T-Mac. What did T-Mac win? He's a great player. I mean, what did Vince Carter win? So what I'm saying is, when we start having these conversations, I hate to do this because then I get into.
I love him, Chris. But let's also talk about Carmelo, who's going into the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Love Carmelo. Didn't win anything. Right. Brad, what else does Jayson Tatum, when we look at the names currently in the Hall of Fame or going into the Hall of Fame? I mean, Dwight Howard is going into the Hall of Fame. Like, what does Jayson Tatum have to do to garner the respect of guys who are going into the Hall of Fame or currently in the Hall of Fame? Because if multiple gold medals, if a conference finals MVP, if a world championship, multiple records, not only for the league, but for your specific franchise, a historic franchise, does not make you have a Hall of Fame resume at 27, what does? Does he have to win 5 championships? I'm confused why the standard for Jayson Tatum is here and for everybody else it's here.
Well, again, they're reasonable. It's not like if Jayson Tatum made the Hall of Fame, if he quit playing this, he never played again and he made it, it wouldn't be like egregious. But to me, those guys you're talking about longevity. Carmelo Anthony would not have been in the Hall of Fame after 7 years. He may have, but I would have argued he shouldn't have. And, all these guys that didn't win.
Well, because he didn't win.
That's fine. But I'm not a results guy, and I'm not just a ring guy in that way. I'm not. I think that results are circumstantial. There's no way you're ever going to tell me that, like, a certain player that didn't win is somehow a worse player than a player that was in better circumstances and did win. Jayson Tatum was on one of the best teams of all time, one of the best starting lineups you could possibly assemble in today's league. And I'm not doing that to detract from Tatum's greatness. I'm saying that doesn't make him better than Iverson to me, because Iverson never won. I'm not that simplistic. I don't look at just the rings. Look, if you want to argue that Tatum could be in right now, you can. I wouldn't put Shea in right now. I just don't think it's a Hall of Fame if all you got to do is come in and be, a top 10 player for 6 or 7 years. To me, now the Hall of Fame is pretty watered down. To Chris's point, Mitch Richmond is in, so from that standpoint, fine. But the way I think of a Hall of Famer, I don't think 7 years where you're like the 8th best player in the league.
Okay, I love Iverson, but if we're gonna go career for career, at 27 years old, Jayson Tatum accomplished more than Allen Iverson ever did, and Allen Iverson's in the Hall of Fame. I can take the winning out of it. I can take the championship out of it if you want to. And Chris, I know you are a big AI guy just like I am, but if we're gonna go standard for standard, resume for resume, and we take the championship off the table, Chris, at 27 years old, Jayson Tatum surpassed Iverson, and he is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, listen, I respect Brad's opinion. And again, there's something missing in the air where people feel that way about him. And people get mad at me when I say, I love Kobe. I think he's one of the best ever. But he played with Shaq. Well, that doesn't matter. Well, no, he played with one of the greatest forces of all time, and that's how he got his jump start. I'm not saying Kobe wasn't good, but he did play with Shaq. I'm not saying Magic wasn't great when you try to say he's better than LeBron, but he did play with Kareem. So what I'm saying is, who did Jayson Tatum play with? I think in today's era of the game, we got to look at the way the game is today. The way the game is, it's not those old timers when they start speaking and Barkley and those guys. I'm like, guys, I don't know if some of you guys could have played today. I'm not saying you wouldn't have been great, but the game is different in this era that we're playing in. And you're saying that Jayson Tatum played on one of the all-great Celtics team. I don't know how great his team would have been against the Bulls or some of those Spurs teams or the Warriors. I don't know. All I know is he's the best player. He's first team All-NBA. He leads them in points, scoring. Last year, not winning the Finals MVP still was something that was lost on me. when he led him in every category, you know what people say? But he didn't make the crucial shots. That's the same thing LeBron goes against when he says, Jordan, you can put a stat up, says he's got the most clutch points. He's got the most. Yeah, but he didn't win 6 rings. So no matter what, it's 6 hand in one hand, half a dozen other. The bottom line is he is one of the best players in the NBA. The NBA is right now, I think, in my opinion, is most talented as ever been. And he plays one of the most historic franchises. What is the hate? And I'm not saying, Brad, you're hating. I respect your opinion. Shaquille O'Neal, sometimes those guys, they hot take me to death. And then Brandon Jennings, I'm like, Brandon Jennings? Again, not that I didn't play in the NBA.
Don't get me started on Brandon Jennings now.
But put it on the but when you put all his accomplishments up there, what are we saying? So who is good now?
Look, it's going to be a conversation, I feel like.
The key, though, Ashley, is, for me, is we keep saying, you know, we're comparing, what did Iverson do compared to Tatum in his first 7 years? Like, that's the whole point. He's definitely on track. Like, there's like very few players ever that have done what he's done through 7 years or however long he's been in the NBA. But there's a difference between on track and barring some sort of catastrophic end to his career. He's 100% to get in. But we're having this sort of fictional conversation that, like, he just decides to hang him up and never plays another game. To me, 7 years it's not enough. There's you can find guys that are I don't disagree that the league is better now. No question the league is better now, and he's a fantastic player. But 7 years, it's just not enough for me.
You and Shaq should go to lunch and record it so that we can all dissect this conversation. Look, when we come back, we're going to talk about the NBA Finals, but not quite in the way that you think, because fans are upset that something is missing, and it has nothing to do with the teams and everything to do with the court. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Triple Threat, everybody. And look, right now it is the biggest and brightest and most important event of the NBA season, the NBA Finals. But if you ask the fans, you probably wouldn't know it, because over the past few days, conversations have ensued on NBA Twitter about the lack of allure, the lack of aesthetic when it comes to the NBA Finals recently. And it's all about the court. So I want to show you what the court looked like back in the day. So back in the day, there were these decals on the court that let you know it was the NBA Finals, whether it had the year, whether it had a championship logo at half court, whether it had just the Finals logo. You knew what time it was. You knew it was the NBA Finals. And fans miss that, especially because when you talk about the NBA Cup, there is just this overload of difference when it comes to the courts. Like, this is too far in the other direction. It is too, I think it's an eyesore, honestly. I don't need this reminder that it's the NBA Cup. A little something would be good, but this is just egregious. But the league actually removed the NBA Finals decal from the court over a decade ago, citing, quote, player safety. Now, Adam Silver recently responded to the critics after Game 1. And he had this to say, quote, "To be honest, I hadn't thought much about it at all until I saw it on social media. I'm nostalgic as well as for certain things. And I also think in a media-driven culture, whether it's people watching live or seeing those images on social media, it's nice when you're looking at the highlights and they stand out when you see that trophy logo or some indication that it's a special event. So we'll look at it." Well, they did look at it. And in Game 2, they did something that the fans also weren't pleased about. They superimposed and awkwardly placed these low-resolution Larry O'B trophies on the court, which did not go well for the fans. Now, if you look at the photo on the left, this is what the court looked like before Adam Silver and the league decided to superimpose trophies on the court. It was very clear, very plain. You obviously had the Finals logo on the Jumbotron, but nothing on the court. So Game 2, this is what they did. They superimposed these clip art trophies on the court, which really just pissed fans off. And they went to social media and were very honest about the fact, like, what the heck is that? Y'all just could have kept that. So I want to ask you guys. I mean, for me, I do miss the logo on the court that lets you know it was the NBA Finals. I don't know why there's so much emphasis placed on the NBA Cup courts, which again, I think are too much and too over the top and too, imprinted on what the moment is. We get it. It's the NBA Cup. Put the colors back in the box. But Chris, player safety was interesting. Like, it's a decal. It's not a roadblock. I'm confused.
Well, you know what? First of all, player safety should be number one. I mean, obviously they've had it year after year. I don't know if slipping on those decals was an issue. And if it is, that should be dealt with. But you got pay.com on the floor. You got the sponsors on the floor. No one's slipping on those. So there was a way to handle this far before it became an issue.
Well, some of those are also digitally imposed as well. Just want to note that. Some of those are not there as well.
So we're just talking about the style that is done. But anytime you take the social media and try to get an answer, that's already problematic. So even this conversation, Ashley said you missed it, but at the same time, the colors of the cup were too much. So now it's like now you got 1 million, 2 million Ashleys that you're trying to satisfy. And the question is, what are you doing for your brand? I think the NBA brand is great. Now, do I think they should put some? You watch the World Series, they have branding there. They should have some branding. I mean, I don't know what that is. I don't handle that department. That was the decision that was made for a specific reason. And if it was for player safety, I'm 1,000% on board with it. But not to brand it at all seems a little odd. And I'm sure that the people in the boardroom have some answering to do to Adam Silver. But at the end of the day, he's the one that makes the decision. But I'll say this. Hey, they tried to change up the All-Star game, and that didn't go well. So every decision that they make, even though they're probably the greatest league in the world, doesn't work out, and maybe they need to rethink that.
Yeah, listen, we need to get some logos back on here. So this is the finals. We're already talking about does it feel big enough because of the small markets that are in it, and the viewership was down. If anybody was reading this, and there's different ways to talk about the data, and I know that can be confusing, and I don't even know how to fully interpret it. But we need to know this is the finals. There's something big about the trophy at center court. And to Chris's point, I mean, maybe those Paycom centers are superimposed. I don't know. But listen, the one at center court isn't. I've walked across the Heat court many times when I'm down there covering games. It can be slippery at center court where everybody's running all the time, but it can't be a little slippery on the edge. Somebody's got to explain to me why we got cars that drive themselves, but we can't get a decal on the court where people don't slip. That's bogus to me. That's absolutely bogus. Like this is center court. It says OKC what? Everybody's ice skating when they're in the middle of the court? No, that ain't it.
To Brad's point,
on the court.
To Brad's point, I mean, I've been watching basketball my entire life. I don't remember anybody slipping and falling specifically on the decal, like to the point where it's like, oh, we gotta get this off the floor.
Come on, they make it like
to the point where it's like, no, we gotta get this off the floor because everyone keeps like. I don't think I even have a recollection of somebody slipping on it.
Oh, no. It can happen, but as Brad says, if we can make driverless cars, we can surely make a logo that people won't slip on. That's just the bottom. That is a
no. I absolutely know it can happen, but I would love to see the numbers in the frequency in which it did happen, because I'm like, I don't have any recollection of this being like an egregious problem. Like, it's like, oh my God, guys are hurting themselves on this decal. Like, come on.
It must be, Ashley, it must be, if it can happen, it must be that there's somehow sort of like not putting the same sort of emphasis on these side logos that they do on center court, because honestly, those center court ones have been there so then just do it the same way. Because again, it's not a banana peel at center court. It's like, just do it. Like there's clear evidence that you can do it. So maybe somehow they're like just slapping those side ones on and it's got different texture. I don't know, but it's obviously possible. Like this shouldn't be a conversation.
They certainly can figure it out. I mean, during the NCAA tournament, guys are slipping on those logos and stuff. It can happen. But you would think the greatest league that has all of this money and resources and technology, they can definitely figure it out. And I'll say this. If I'm OKC, and Brad, you mentioned this about small markets. If I'm OKC in Indiana, I want the logo on my floor.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Like, think about that. Like, you're OKC, you got Paycom there, and people are like, okay, OKC, Shai Gilgeous, okay's MVP. I want NBA Finals on the floor, even if it's just in script. Makes zero sense.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
also,
shout out to the Pacers because they're allowing fans to stop by, I guess, their store and get a patch put onto their jerseys that says the NBA Finals. So we got to figure out a way to bring the swag back to the NBA Finals because we are desperately missing the flavor. But look, usually we do a segment called In Your Bag where I pose a question to social media and then we go through the answers. But there was something on social media that was just too good to not talk about, and it's about DeMarcus Cousins being in his bag. Don't want to miss this. We'll be right back. Look, DeMarcus Cousins, once upon a time in the NBA, was known as the original enforcer. He was never afraid to swing on anyone or anything that came in his path. Well, look, he's currently playing in Puerto Rico, and that hasn't changed much because in a game on Monday, he was leaving the court, heading through the tunnel, heading to the locker room when some fans, he appeared to provoke some fans in the stands, whether trash talk, whatever. You see him like bullying it up. Well, those fans then retaliated and threw some beers and things in his direction. And that's when all heck broke loose because he had to be held back by security because he wanted the smoke and he was ready to go. He was trying to fight. I saw this and I was like, DeMarcus Cousins, it's still DeMarcus Cousins. But I will say this. Trash talk is one thing. You throw a drink, all bets are off, Chris. Like, you want the smoke? Let's go. We can go. You want to rumble? Let's rumble.
Yeah, that's it. You know, DeMarcus Cousins always much maligned for his attitude in a lot of different ways and his bravado. But again, you know, you're off the soil. You're off the you can't do that in the States. Obviously, Puerto Rico's a part of it. But this is what happens, like you said before, when you provoke them and you act a certain type of way. Basketball's different in Europe too. Like, you know, look at soccer, look at all sports. It may not be so civil here, and the rules are not the same. So as you say, you know, sometimes you ask for what you get, and be careful what you wish for. So he's probably over there dominating and looking and being, I don't want to say condescending, but just being caught up in the moment, and the moment caught him. I never am someone who thinks that fans should be able to throw things, because now let's say it's not water and it's something else the next time. I played with a guy named Doug West, and we played at the University of Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh thought he should have gone to Pittsburgh because he was from Altoona, PA, and we came out the tunnel. They threw pennies at us. So I mean, it could be crazy how things can be. So we definitely got to get that under control. But DeMarcus Cousins, he always finds his way to the press.
Yeah, I agree with this. You know, we were talking about Shaq and some of his takes earlier. This is one of the ones I agree with Charles Barkley, when he used to say that players should be able to whoop one fan's ass, you know, once a game. I think, you know, if you got the stones to sit up in the crowd, these are like the keyboard warriors of today. You sit up in the crowd where you know no retaliation can come. You ain't throwing that beer on DeMarcus Cousins down at the local pub. You're not doing that. So I you know, this is man-to-man stuff. You can't do that. If you want to heckle, be a fan, fine. But you start crossing lines that you know you're not going to have to answer for, I'm all for it. Like, I mean, you're making your bed here. I agree with Barkley here. Get the one fan per game, gone over the line, had too many beers. You got to come down to center court and pour that beer on DeMarcus's head, and then we'll find out what happens.
Right. It was on the verge of being Malice in the Palace, Puerto Rico. But like you guys are saying, rightfully so, because you want to trash talk, you can trash talk, but once you throw something at me, it's a different ball game. So we should put the fans in the ring with a basketball player, like you said, at halftime. Maybe that'll be a cool performance. Look, if you miss any minute of today's show, don't worry, scan this QR code and catch the full episode on the CBS Sports YouTube page.